That thing electric or just for pity points? The words sliced through the cozy morning air of Blue Oak Calf with the kind of jagged contempt that made ceramic cups pause mid-clink. 3 men in faded leather jackets stood near the pie counter, their boots tracking road dust across freshly mopped tile. They looked like rust come to life, each smirk a scar carved by time and unchecked arrogance. Seated by the window, Clara Monroe didn't look up. At 27, she carried the calm of someone who had long stopped expecting the world to make room for her. Her auburn hair, tied in a soft knot, framed a face too young for the resignation etched into its every angle. The wheelchair beside her was quiet, humming faintly as the morning sun kissed its chrome frame. She had come early, like always, to sit with her tea, her journal, and the cloth napkin her mother had stitched years ago. That napkin now bore a splash of red chili, a cruel reminder of the boot that had accidentally kicked her tray when Clyde, the tallest of the trio, decided to be funny. "Oops," he grinned, watching the stain spread like rust across the only thing Clara carried with her every day. The calf stilled. The waitress near the counter looked up, then away. A man by the coffee machine stirred his drink slower. No one said a word. Clara's fingers, long and gentle, did not tremble. They moved to adjust the tray across her lap, not to clean the mess but to steady it. Her breath came in quietly, shaped by a silence thick with too many days like this. In a booth near the back, a boy of maybe 10 blinked at her, watching the interaction unfold like a movie where everyone else forgot their lines. His father, wearing a county fire department hoodie, noticed too. He reached beneath the table, tapped his phone screen, typed something fast. Across town, in a one-room motel with curtains that hadn't closed properly since the 90s, Wren Callahan stirred. Her boots were still on, her duffel bag slumped near the bed like it had fallen asleep before she did. The buzz of her phone lit the room. The message was short. "It's happening again. Clyde hit her. Please." Wren sat up slowly. The name burned. She didn't come back to Dawson for this, hadn't planned on returning at all. But there was something in that text, something heavier than guilt, closer to gravity. Clara's face appeared in her mind, not at the calf, but on a porch swing long ago, laughter in her eyes as she recited poetry from memory. Clara had stayed. When Wren came back from deployment and couldn't speak without her hands shaken, Clara brought soup and silence, the kind of silence that told you, "You don't owe me anything, but I'm not leaving." Wren stood, jaw clenched, dog tags cold against her collarbone. She grabbed her keys and the white cloth she carried in her jacket pocket, not knowing why until now. The road into Dawson hadn't changed. Still 2 lanes of patched asphalt, still the rusted sign at the county line that said, "Welcome to Dawson, where tradition lives." As her truck rolled past it, Wren didn't bother with the radio. The tires hummed a low growl. Memory had weight here, and it pressed against her chest like armor. By the time she reached the calf, the sun had risen higher but not warmer. The parking lot was half full. She didn't park out front. She circled to the back, engine idling as she stared at the building. The last time she'd seen Clara Monroe was 3 years ago, the night before Wren left town for good. Or so she thought. Inside, the calf had quieted. Lunch crowd not yet arrived. A few patrons lingered, eyes fixed on anything but the woman by the window. Clara sat in her usual spot, napkin still tied at her wrist, now stained but carefully folded. Her expression was unreadable, but her hands, those quiet, capable hands, were still. Wren walked in like she belonged, because there was no room anymore for shrinking. Clara saw her immediately. Her eyes lifted, pale green and sharp. Recognition flickered. Wren didn't smile. She simply walked to the booth and slid in across from her. "I'm here," she said, voice low. Clara's response was barely a whisper. "I didn't ask." "I know." Silence settled again, but not the kind that wounds. The waitress ambled over, chewed her gum like it owed her money, and dropped 2 menus without a word. Wren didn't look up. Clara didn't open hers. "You shouldn't have come," Clara said. "Shouldn't or didn't expect," Wren replied, one eyebrow raised. Clara looked away. Outside, a motorcycle passed, its engine growling. Clara's shoulders tensed. "They pushed me yesterday," she said. "I didn't fall, not physically, but I felt like I had." Wren leaned back. "You did. You fell into a silence they thought would hold." Clara blinked. "No one said anything." "I know." A pause, deep and heavy. "Why now?" Clara asked. "Why today?" Wren exhaled. "Because if I don't stand now, then what was all that strength for?" She reached into her coat and pulled out the folded cloth, soft and white, clean. She placed it gently on the table and said, "This isn't to replace what you lost. It's so you can carry something new when we go forward." Clara's fingers touched it, trembled, but didn't draw back. For the first time in what felt like 100 mornings, she exhaled with something almost like peace. "You planning to fight them?" she asked. "No," Wren replied. "I'm planning to show this town what it looks like when someone doesn't stand alone." The air between them shifted. The calf was still. Outside, the sky dimmed into pewter. A boy passed by the window and waved. Clara, slow but certain, lifted her hand and waved back. Somewhere in that simple motion, something changed. The town didn't notice yet, but it would, not with sirens, not with news anchors, but with presence. And sometimes, presence is the loudest kind of defiance there is. By the time the video reached 4,000 views, the town of Dawson still hadn't said a word, not out loud, but the silence was starting to twitch. That clip, 42 seconds long, grainy but clear, showed Clyde tipping Clara's tray with his boot, the splash of chili, the smirk, and her stillness. It ended just before she rolled herself away, napkin stained like a wound on her wrist. Wren hadn't meant for it to spread. It had been the boy's father who posted it, captioning the video with nothing more than, "This is Clara Monroe. This is what we let happen." Wren didn't share it. But people she knew did. Former unit members, disability advocates, quiet people who'd been watching for a reason to speak. The town's Facebook group erupted like a campfire dropped in dry brush. Half the comments praised Clara's composure. The rest accused the video of exaggeration, manipulation, looking for attention. Wren read them all, not because she needed the validation, but because knowing who said what helped her understand the battlefield. The next morning, Clara returned to Blue Oak Calf. Same spot, same quiet grace. Wren sat across from her again, black coffee in hand, untouched. The atmosphere buzzed differently now. The air didn't hang still, it bristled. Customers glanced more often. Some nodded, others looked away faster. Clyde hadn't returned. Not yet, but people felt him coming, like thunder before the lightning strike. When the door creaked open just before 11, it was Vic and Benny who entered, first shadows of the same storm. Then Clyde. His boots struck the floor in slow, deliberate rhythm. His jacket creaked. The room stiffened. "Well," Clyde said, voice thick with venom and fake charm, Look who's got herself a security detail. Clara didn't blink. Wren didn't rise. She only looked up, her voice low but solid. You're not invisible anymore? Clyde scoffed. Thought you folks were all about peace and patience. Isn't that your brand? Wren reached into her coat and calmly set her phone on the table. With one tap, she played the video this time, not just of the first encounter, but another clip. It showed the moment the waitress ignored Clara's spilled tray, the silence of the room, the weight of inaction. When it finished, Wren looked up. You went viral, she said. 15,000 views overnight. Dawson's Bully's now available in high definition. Clyde's smirk wavered. Benny muttered a curse. Vic shifted, eyes narrowing. You filming us now? Clyde barked. You don't get to play hero with stolen footage. You didn't care about privacy when you stomped on dignity, Wren replied. Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Behind the counter, the same waitress from the day before now stood still, her jaw tight. Then, surprisingly, she turned and walked to the back without a word. Wren noted it. People were shifting, slowly but surely. You think this changes anything? Clyde snarled. You think people care? Clara spoke now, her voice soft but unflinching. Not everyone, but enough. Clyde's face reddened. He stepped forward, but Wren stood. Her hand didn't reach for her phone, didn't ball into a fist. She only said, You've got 30 minutes. Make your choices carefully. The room froze. Chairs squeaked as patrons leaned away. Then Vic touched Clyde's elbow. Come on, he muttered. Clyde hesitated, then turned. The door shut behind them with a bang. Clara exhaled, hands trembling. I was shaking, she admitted. I know, Wren said, but they didn't see it. That's power. Across the room, a man in a denim jacket gave a small nod. A woman near the pastry case tapped her phone screen, not with fear but with intention. Awareness, long asleep, was stirring. But not everyone woke up the same way. That afternoon, Clara returned to find the calf windows smeared with egg. A note taped to the door read, Don't play the victim and you won't get hurt. Inside, the manager fidgeted behind the counter. His hands clutched a damp rag that hadn't touched anything. I'm sorry, he said without looking up. We didn't think the video would go this far. Clara wheeled forward, calm despite the cold wind threading through the broken window. You didn't think anyone would care, Wren corrected him. He flinched. I just think maybe you two should take a break, let things cool off. Clara turned without a word and rolled back out. The wind whipped her scarf loose. She didn't fix it. Is it cowardice? She asked quietly, or just fear in polite clothes? Wren didn't answer right away. She knelt beside Clara's chair and met her gaze. This town was raised on silence. You broke that. That makes you dangerous. Clara blinked slowly. Are you scared? I used to be, Wren said. Now I'm ready. From her coat, she pulled a small notebook. Inside were names, old friends, allies, people who owed her favors or at least a chance to show up for what was right. Clara looked at the list, lips pressed together. You're calling in reinforcements? Wren shook her head. No, I'm calling in witnesses. That evening, Clyde posted a shaky video of his own. It showed Clara wheeling away from the calf, scarf flapping like a white flag. His caption read, Even the tough girl can't take the heat. Guess Dawson ain't ready for wheel justice. The comment section roared with approval and disgust in equal measure. Wren watched it from her truck, engine off, eyes sharp. Then she hit record. "You're right, Clyde," she said calmly, dog tags visible. "Dawson doesn't have an army, but it's about to learn what honor looks like. You've got 30 minutes. She uploaded the clip and waited. At precisely 2:58 p.m., just as Clyde settled into his usual seat at the Blue Oak Calf with the confidence of a man convinced no one could touch him, the gravel outside shifted. Tires crunched the frozen dirt with deliberate calm. A matte gray SUV rolled into the lot, not flashy, not fast, but unmistakably official in a way that didn't need to scream. Its windows were tinted. The plate was unreadable in the sunlight. Inside the calf, forks hovered midair. The heat from the coffee felt suddenly colder. Clyde didn't look concerned. Vic leaned back in his seat, toothpick twitching between his teeth. Benny cracked his knuckles without rhythm, like static in human form. The hush that followed was slow, like fog sneaking in through the cracks. Then the door opened. 3 figures stepped inside. No uniforms, no fanfare. But they didn't need either. The first was broad-shouldered, bald, with a posture carved from decades of discipline. The second moved with ghost-like quiet, a patch from the 3rd Infantry barely visible beneath his thick coat. The third, she was the kind of a presence that turned heads without raising her voice. Her hair was tightly braided, her walk precise. She scanned the calf like she was still on patrol. They said nothing. The room didn't ask them to. They passed the booths one by one, pausing only when they reached the table where Clara Monroe sat with her back straight, scarf knotted with intention, and Wren Callahan beside her, hands calm around a lukewarm mug. Wren looked up. "You're late." The bald man nodded once. "Traffic." Clara turned toward them. Her voice didn't tremble. "Thank you for coming." The woman veteran gave her a respectful nod and placed one hand briefly on Clara's shoulder. Not soft, not hard, just right. Then the bald man faced Clyde and spoke. "We've read the comments, all of them." Clyde chuckled, slouching deeper into his seat. "What, you gonna teach me a lesson?" "No," the man replied evenly. "You already failed that class." From inside his coat, he withdrew a folded sheet official stationery, emblem in the corner, and set it on the table in front of Clyde. "This is a formal complaint filed with the Regional Veterans Board. Harassment of a civilian, defamation of a disabled person in public, and now digital threats." Clyde's smile faltered. Benny muttered, "You serious?" The woman spoke then, voice sharp and precise. "You didn't just mock a civilian. You humiliated someone who stood by one of our own during recovery. You threatened someone who served beside us by threatening the one person who helped her stand again. You may think this town will protect you, but towns remember, especially when footage this clear burns itself into their conscience." Vic looked away. Benny scratched at nothing. Clyde didn't speak, but the twitch in his jaw betrayed something colder than anger. It was exposure. Behind the counter, the new manager had stepped out and now stood silently watching. Patrons had stopped pretending to scroll their phones. Some had already hit record. Wren stood slow and calm and walked to Clyde's table. She placed her hand beside the letter and looked him in the eye. "We told you. 30 minutes." She stepped back. Clara rolled forward, not with fury, not with vengeance, just presence. The same kind of presence that had silenced rooms for years, not by volume, but by certainty. "I'm not here to watch you apologize," she said. I'm here to make sure you never forget that I existed and that you didn't break me." Clyde opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The bald man leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You made a lot of noise, but it only took one woman rolling forward to make you silent." Then all 5 of them turned and walked out. Clara, Wren, the 3 witnesses. They didn't slam the door. They didn't need to. It closed behind them with a finality that the wind carried across the street. Outside the calf sat an old wooden bench, worn by time, splinters at the edges, but someone had scrubbed it clean. A folded blanket rested on top, the same pattern as Clara's scarf. They sat there a moment, no words. Just the sound of cold air and boots settling. Inside, Clyde stared at the door, not because it moved, but because he couldn't. He looked like a man waiting for something that had already passed him by. Wren reached into her coat and pulled out her thermos. Clara took a sip from her cup, steam curling like memory around her fingers. "That went better than I thought," Wren said. Clara didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the horizon where Dawson's silence used to live. Then she said, "They'll come back." Wren nodded. "So will we." By sundown, the video of the confrontation had been edited and posted not by Wren, but by someone else in the calf. It showed everything. The entrance, the confrontation, Clara's words, the quiet retreat. The caption was simple. "Justice doesn't knock, it shows up." It hit 20,000 views by midnight. By morning, someone had scratched crude words into the calf door, but just beneath it, someone else had taped a sticky note. "We see you. We thank you." The balance was shifting. Not a landslide, not a revolution, just small tremors of truth beginning to rise. A week passed. Dawson didn't erupt. It didn't protest. It didn't cheer. But it shifted, like old soil finally loosening after years of drought. The Blue Oak calf reopened under new management. The new owner, a woman with silver-streaked braids and eyes that had clearly seen too much to be fooled by small-town smiles, repainted the door, removed the cracked neon sign, and replaced it with wooden letters carved by hand. The name remained almost the same. But one word changed. It now read, Harmony Calf. Inside, in the back corner near the wide window, one table bore a brass plaque. It read, Reserved for Courage. And beneath it, etched in quiet dignity, Justice doesn't knock, it shows up. Clara Monroe sat at that table again. This time, her tray held nothing but a cup of tea and a warm slice of pie someone had brought over without saying a word. Her scarf was tied neatly, the new cloth from Wren still tucked at her wrist, not a replacement, but a reminder. Across from her, Wren flipped through a grant application, her fingers tapping rhythmically against the paper. They had spent the past 3 days outlining a new project, a mentorship group for young women with disabilities. Clara had insisted on the name. Wheels Forward. "You sure about this?" Wren asked. "I'm not sure about anything," Clara answered, smiling faintly. "But I've learned that's not a reason to stop." Students entered the calf, laughing in clusters, jackets slung over chairs. One girl noticed Clara, paused, and gave a quiet, respectful nod. Clara returned it. No one stared. Not that day. Outside, the same wooden bench still sat, the one where the 5 of them had rested after the confrontation. But now, someone had added a small brass plate. Wren noticed it for the first time as she stepped out into the cold afternoon air. She crouched to read it. It said, To those who roll forward even when the road is cracked. She stood there a moment. the wind brushing her cheek like breath instead of bruise. Behind her, Clara helped a new barista navigate the register, soft-spoken, gentle, her presence not instructing but guiding. The young girl relaxed visibly under Clara's care. That was her gift. Not noise, not anger, presence. Wren watched from the doorway. Her hands stayed in her pockets. The dog tags beneath her jacket shifted slightly with each breath. Sometimes the strongest fights are fought by staying. A boy passed by, the same one who had filmed the very first video. He walked alongside his father but stopped when he saw Clara. "Miss Monroe?" he asked. Clara turned, her green eyes calm. "Are you a hero?" She paused, her smile as soft as the snow gathering quietly along the edge of the window. "No," she said gently, "but I showed up." The boy blinked. "That's what heroes do." And then he was gone, scarf flying behind him like a cape. Wren stepped back inside, her boots tapping softly against the floor. Clara was already moving toward their table, her wheelchair humming like it always had, but today it sounded like progress. They sat together without words. The calf buzzed around them, but their corner was calm. There were no reporters, no viral hashtags painted across the walls, just coffee, motion, and space held open by people who refused to disappear. Outside, someone had left a note on the bench, folded carefully, tucked beneath the brass plate. Clara retrieved it later that night. It read, "You made us see. Thank you for not going quiet." The next morning, the grant for Wheels Forward was approved. The news didn't break on any national feed. It came in a plain email with 2 lines of text and a small green check mark. But Clara printed it and pinned it to the bulletin board near the calf's back kitchen. Below it, she wrote in pen, "We begin where others told us to stop." Wren read it and said nothing. She didn't need to. A month later, Benny had moved out of town. Vic stopped showing up at his usual stool at the Broken Lantern bar. Clyde's motorcycle shop, once loud and full of sound, was shuttered rumors of repairs, but no one saw any tools. And, more importantly, Dawson's people began to change how they looked at each other. Not all at once, not all at the same speed, but enough. At the post office, someone held the door for Clara without pity, just practice. At the grocery store, a teenager slipped a handwritten card into her shopping basket. It said, "We saw, we're sorry." At Harmony Calf, the back corner table was never empty again. Clara didn't claim it like a throne, she welcomed it like a seat in a shared room. Sometimes she worked quietly, sometimes she listened, and sometimes, when the sun hit just right, she simply sat there, whole, steady, unbroken. On the anniversary of that first video, Wren stood beside her, a quiet coffee in hand, both of them watching the door without watching it. No threats came through it now, only customers, some curious, some quiet, some grateful. One girl, no more than 16, wheeled herself across the tiled floor, her hands trembling. Clara stood to greet her, not with fanfare, just with presence. Wren turned to the window, the late light glinting off her dog tags, her reflection layered over the town she once tried to leave behind. And, for the first time since returning, she felt no need to run, no debt, no silence owed. Just the quiet strength of standing beside someone who never stopped showing up,